The great hall of the Cytherian Imperial Palace stretched for nearly a kilometer, its crystal walls reaching toward a dome that showed the swirling colors of 3 different suns. Ben Walker stood at the center of this magnificent space, still wearing his battle-worn human military uniform. The fabric showed scorch marks from plasma fire, and his left shoulder bore a hastily applied medical patch. He had not expected to be standing here just 6 hours after the Battle of Vega Prime ended. Around him, hundreds of alien nobles filled the massive chamber. The Cytherians were tall, elegant beings with skin that ranged from deep blue to silver. Most had 4 arms and graceful wings that folded against their backs like living artwork. Their large eyes could see across multiple light spectrums, and many possessed mental abilities that humans could barely understand. Emperor Valdris sat on a throne carved from a single massive crystal. His skin held a golden tint that marked him as royalty, and his wings displayed patterns of light that shifted with his emotions. Currently, those patterns showed deep gratitude mixed with curiosity as he looked down at the human soldier. Ben Walker of Earth. The Emperor's voice echoed through the hall without amplification. Cytherians could project their thoughts as sound when needed. Your actions today saved not only our fleet but our entire world. When our ships fell to the Darkstar Collective, when our weapons failed against their shield technology, you found a way to victory that our greatest minds missed. Ben shifted uncomfortably. He was not used to such formal ceremonies. 3 days ago, he had been just another human soldier assigned to the Joint Defense Force. His specialty was demolitions, and his rank was nothing special. When the Darkstar ships had surrounded the Cytherian fleet, everyone thought the battle was lost. The enemy had new technology that made their ships nearly invisible to Cytherian sensors. Their weapons could drain power from Cytherian crystals, leaving the alien ships helpless. The combined human and Cytherian fleet was being destroyed piece by piece. Ben had noticed something the others missed. The Darkstar ships became visible for just a few seconds when they fired their weapons. During those brief moments, their shields also weakened. He had taken a small human fighter craft, loaded it with explosives, and timed his attack perfectly. His ship had crashed into the enemy flagship just as its shields dropped, destroying the command vessel and causing the rest of the Darkstar fleet to retreat in confusion. The bond between our species grows stronger with each battle we fight together, Emperor Valdris continued. But your courage goes beyond duty or alliance. You risked your life not just for humans, but for Cytherians you had never met, for children on our world who now live because of your sacrifice. The Emperor rose from his throne. According to the ancient laws of our people, when a warrior performs such a deed, he may claim a reward. Our tradition offers the highest honor we can give to an outsider. You may choose one of my daughters as your mate, creating a formal bond between our royal house and humanity. A murmur ran through the crowd. This was indeed a great honor. Cytherians did not offer such alliances lightly. Their royal family was considered sacred, and marriage to a princess would make Ben an official representative of Earth in Cytherian society. I am honored, Your Majesty, Ben said carefully. He had been briefed about Cytherian customs during his training, but he had never expected to be part of such a ceremony. If I may ask, what would this mean exactly? You would become a Prince of Cythera, the Emperor explained. Your children would carry royal blood. You would speak for humanity in our councils and help guide the relationship between our peoples. Your chosen princess would learn human ways and serve as our ambassador to Earth. Emperor Valdris gestured toward a section of the hall. My daughters are here today. Each is accomplished in her own way, and each would bring great honor to this union. 7 figures moved forward from the crowd. Ben had seen Cytherian females before, but these were clearly different from ordinary citizens. Their clothing was more elaborate, and they moved with the confidence of those born to power. The first princess stepped into the light cast by the palace dome. Ben heard gasps of admiration from the crowd. Princess Zara was considered the most beautiful Cytherian in the Empire. Her skin held a pearl-like shine that seemed to generate its own light. Her wings were enormous, spanning nearly 4 meters, and they displayed patterns of silver and gold that shifted like liquid metal. When she looked at Ben, her large eyes seemed to glow with inner fire. Princess Zara commands our military academy, the Emperor said with pride. She has never lost a battle simulation and can influence the minds of entire army groups with her telepathic abilities. The second princess joined her sister. Princess Kira had skin the color of deep ocean water, and her wings showed patterns that reminded Ben of Earth's aurora displays. Princess Kira leads our science division. She has solved mathematical problems that stumped our greatest minds for centuries. Her mental calculations can predict the movement of entire star systems. One by one, the other princesses were introduced. Each possessed extraordinary abilities that amazed the watching crowd. Princess Vera could communicate with any species telepathically. Princess Luna could manipulate gravity with her thoughts. Princess Stella generated energy fields that could power entire cities. Princess Maya could see possible futures and guide important decisions. Each princess was beautiful, powerful, and accomplished. The alien nobles clearly expected Ben to choose Princess Zara, whose combination of beauty and military skill made her the obvious selection. Some humans in the crowd nodded approvingly, understanding that such an alliance would bring great benefits to Earth. Then the seventh princess stepped forward, and the mood in the hall changed completely. Princess Neela was smaller than her sisters, barely reaching Ben's shoulder even though most Cytherians were much taller than humans. Her skin appeared dull gray to Cytherian eyes, lacking the inner light that her people found beautiful. Her wings were plain brown and only half the size of her sister's wings. She wore simple clothing and kept her eyes downcast, clearly uncomfortable with the attention. Princess Neela serves in our medical corps, the Emperor said, and Ben noticed that his voice held less pride than when introducing the others. She tends to wounded soldiers and assists with hospital administration. Several nobles in the crowd whispered among themselves. Ben caught fragments of their conversation. They wondered why the seventh princess was even included in the ceremony. Some suggested it was merely a formality, that no one would seriously consider choosing her. Ben studied each princess carefully. He was not easily impressed by displays of power or beauty. His years as a soldier had taught him to look beyond surface appearances. He watched how each princess carried herself, how they treated the servants who approached them, and how they reacted to the crowd's attention. Princess Zara stood proudly, clearly expecting to be chosen. She smiled confidently and used her telepathic abilities to project feelings of attraction toward Ben. Princess Kira demonstrated her intelligence by making complex calculations, appear in the air using light from her wings. The other princesses each showed off their abilities in subtle ways. Princess Neela simply stood quietly, waiting for the ceremony to end. She did not try to impress Ben or compete with her sisters. Instead, she watched the crowd with gentle eyes, and Ben noticed that she seemed concerned about several wounded Cytherian soldiers who were standing at the back of the hall. "I need a moment to consider," Ben said politely. This was not unusual. The choice of a royal mate was important and careful consideration was expected. Ben walked slowly past each princess, thinking about what he had observed. During his 3 months with the Joint Defense Force, Ben had spent time in Cytherian medical facilities. He remembered seeing a gray-skinned female who worked tirelessly with wounded soldiers. She had been kind to human patients, learning their language and customs to make them more comfortable. She had stayed awake for days during a medical crisis, refusing to rest while soldiers needed care. She had also shown remarkable intelligence when suggesting new treatments that saved lives. Her ideas were often ignored at first because she lacked telepathic abilities, but they proved effective when tested. Ben remembered thinking that the medical staff did not appreciate her contributions properly. Looking at Princess Neela now, Ben realized she was that same person. She had been working in the hospitals not because she was assigned there, but because she chose to help others. "Have you made your decision?" Emperor Valdris asked. Ben nodded and walked back to the center of the hall. The crowd grew quiet, waiting for his announcement. Princess Zara stepped forward slightly, her smile growing wider. "I choose Princess Neela," Ben said clearly. The silence that followed was complete. Even the background hum of the palace system seemed to stop. Hundreds of alien faces stared at Ben in shock. Several nobles made sounds of disbelief. Princess Neela's eyes went wide with surprise. She had clearly never expected to be chosen for anything, let alone something this important. Her sisters looked equally stunned, though Ben noticed that none of them seemed angry or jealous. They appeared genuinely confused by his choice. Emperor Valdris was the first to recover his voice. "You choose Princess Neela? You are certain of this decision?" "I am certain, Your Majesty," Ben replied firmly. But one of the nobles called out, "She has no special powers. Her skin does not shine. Her wings are weak. What could you possibly see in the least gifted of our princesses?" Ben turned to face the crowd. He had expected this reaction, and he was prepared for it. "I have fought alongside many soldiers," he said, his voice carrying clearly through the hall. "I have learned that true strength is not always obvious. The greatest warriors are not always the ones with the biggest weapons or the flashiest abilities." He looked directly at Princess Neela, who was still staring at him in amazement. "I have seen Princess Neela work in the medical centers. I have watched her save lives with skill and dedication. I have seen her treat every patient with kindness, regardless of their species or rank. I have seen her solve problems that others missed because they were too focused on showing off their own abilities." Ben paused, making sure his words reached everyone in the hall. "Beauty fades, power can be lost, but character is permanent. Princess Neela has shown me more true strength in her quiet service than others have shown with all their flashy displays." The hall remained silent. Ben could see that his words had surprised many of the nobles. They had never considered that someone might value different qualities than they did. Princess Neela finally found her voice. "You really choose me?" she asked quietly. "Even though I am not like my sisters?" "I choose you because you are not like your sisters," Ben replied gently. "You are exactly who I want as a partner." Emperor Valdris looked troubled. This was clearly not the outcome he had expected or hoped for, but Catherian law was clear, and he could not override Ben's choice without causing a diplomatic incident. "Very well," the Emperor said slowly. "If this is your decision, we will honor it." Princess Neela stepped forward. Princess Neela moved toward the center of the hall, still looking dazed. Her sisters parted respectfully to let her pass, and Ben noticed that several of them smiled at her encouragingly. "The bonding ceremony will take place in 3 days," Emperor Valdris announced. "This will allow time for proper preparations and for both parties to understand their new responsibilities." As the formal ceremony concluded and the crowd began to disperse, Ben found himself surrounded by curious nobles asking questions about his choice. He answered politely but briefly. Eager to speak with Princess Neela privately, she waited until most of the crowd had left before approaching him. "I must ask," she said hesitantly, "why did you really choose me?" "My father spoke truly when he said I have no special abilities. I am not beautiful by our standards. I cannot offer you power or influence," Ben smiled at her. "You can offer me something much more valuable than power. You can offer me a true partnership with someone who cares more about helping others than impressing them." Princess Neela studied his face carefully. "You are serious about this. You are not making fun of me or trying to insult my family." "I am completely serious," Ben assured her. "I have been watching you for months, though you did not know it. I have seen who you really are when no one important is paying attention. That is the person I want to share my life with." For the first time since Ben had known her, Princess Neela smiled broadly. The expression transformed her face completely, revealing a warmth and intelligence that her usual sadness had hidden. "Then I accept your choice gladly," she said, "and I promise you will not regret it." As they walked together through the crystal corridors of the palace, Ben felt confident that he had made the right decision. He did not know what challenges lay ahead, but he knew he had chosen a partner who would face them with courage, wisdom, and compassion. The other nobles might not understand his choice now, but Ben was certain that time would prove him right. Princess Neela's true value would become clear to everyone eventually. He was looking forward to that day. 3 months had passed since Ben Walker married Princess Neela in a ceremony that shocked the Catherian Empire. The wedding had been beautiful but awkward, with many nobles still confused by the human's choice. Some whispered that Ben must have been influenced by alien mind control, while others suggested he was playing a long political game that no one understood. Ben and Neela now lived in a wing of the imperial palace designed for visiting diplomats. The rooms were comfortable but not lavish, reflecting Neela's position as the least favored princess. Neither of them minded the modest quarters. They had spent their time learning about each other's cultures and working together on various projects. Ben had been assigned as a military advisor to help integrate human and Catherian fighting techniques. Neela continued her work in the medical corps, though she now also served as a cultural liaison to help injured human soldiers feel more comfortable in Catherian hospitals. Their marriage had started as a political alliance, but genuine affection had grown between them. Ben appreciated Neela's gentle wisdom and practical intelligence. She valued his straightforward honesty and his ability to see solutions that others missed. They made a good team, though few people had noticed yet. On this particular morning, Ben woke to find Neela already dressed and studying reports on her personal tablet. Her gray skin looked pale with worry and her small wings were twitching nervously. "What's wrong?" Ben asked, sitting up in bed. "Emergency signals from the outer colonies," Neela said without looking up from her tablet. 3 star systems have gone dark in the past 6 hours. No communication, no transport ships, nothing. Ben felt his stomach drop. During his months with the Catherian military, he had learned that such complete communication blackouts usually meant one thing: invasion. "Have they sent scout ships to investigate?" he asked. 2 reconnaissance fleets left an hour ago, Neela replied, "but they're not expected to reach the affected systems for another day. Father is calling an emergency meeting of the War Council." Ben quickly dressed in his military uniform. As Neela's husband, he now had the right to attend important palace meetings, though he usually chose to stay away from politics. The Imperial War Room buzzed with nervous energy when they arrived. Emperor Valdris stood at the center of a massive holographic display, showing the Catherian Empire's territory. Red warning signals marked the 3 systems that had gone silent. "The pattern suggests a coordinated attack," General Karos was saying as Ben and Neela entered. The military commander was a large Catherian with silver skin and wings that displayed aggressive patterns of red and black. "But our long-range sensors detect no enemy ships in those areas. Could it be the Darkstar Collective again?" asked Princess Zara, who commanded the Space Defense Force. "Their cloaking technology made them nearly invisible during the last battle." "Unlikely," replied Princess Kira, whose mathematical abilities made her the Empire's chief strategic analyst. "Our new sensor networks were specifically designed to detect their technology after Ben's victory at Vega Prime." Ben noticed that Neela was studying the holographic display intently. Her gray eyes moved rapidly as she analyzed the patterns of the dead zones. "Has anyone considered that this might not be an attack at all?" Neela said quietly. The room fell silent. Everyone turned to look at the least regarded princess, clearly surprised that she had spoken up during a military meeting. General Karos frowned. "Princess Neela, with respect, warfare is not your area of expertise." "Medical emergencies follow patterns too," Neela replied calmly. "When multiple patients present with the same symptoms, good doctors look for common causes rather than assuming separate illnesses." Emperor Valdris looked interested despite himself. "Explain your thinking, daughter." Neela moved closer to the holographic display. "Look at the locations of the affected systems. They're not strategically valuable targets. No major military bases, no important manufacturing centers, no rare resources. If someone wanted to damage our empire, they would attack more valuable positions." She touched the hologram, highlighting the 3 dead zones. "But these systems do have something in common. They all contain large civilian populations and they all reported unusual energy readings in the past month." Princess Kira's eyes widened as she understood what Neela was suggesting. "You think they're using some kind of weapon that targets population centers specifically?" "Not a weapon," Neela said thoughtfully. "A disease. Something that affects our telepathic abilities and our bioelectrical systems. That's why all communication stopped at once. If our people in those systems lost their mental abilities suddenly, they couldn't operate the technology that connects them to the rest of the empire." The War Council stared at her in shock. The possibility of a biological attack that targeted Catherian mental abilities was terrifying, because those abilities were essential to their civilization. "That's impossible," General Karos protested. "Our medical screens would detect any biological weapons before they could spread. Unless the weapon was designed specifically to avoid our detection methods," Ben said, understanding what his wife was thinking. "If someone studied Catherian biology carefully enough, they could create something that our sensors wouldn't recognize as a threat." "But who would have such knowledge?" Princess Zara asked. Before anyone could answer, an aide rushed into the war room carrying an urgent message. "Your Majesty, the scout ships have reached the first dead zone. They're transmitting their findings now." The holographic display changed to show images from the reconnaissance mission. What they saw confirmed Neela's worst fears. The colony cities appeared normal from space, but when the camera zoomed in, the truth became clear. Cytherians wandered the streets in confusion, unable to use their telepathic abilities or operate their technology. Ships sat grounded because their pilots couldn't mentally interface with the navigation systems. Communication centers were silent because the operators couldn't project their thoughts across space. "They're alive but helpless," whispered Princess Vera, whose own telepathic abilities were among the strongest in the Empire, cut off from everything that makes us who we are. Emperor Valdris looked grim. "How long before this spreads to other systems?" "Unknown," Princess Kira replied after running quick calculations. "If it's truly a biological agent, the infection rate will depend on how it transmits and how many people were exposed initially. We need to quarantine the affected areas immediately," General Caro said. "No ships in or out until we understand what we're dealing with." "That won't help the people who are already infected," Neela pointed out. "And if this is spreading through space itself rather than person-to-person contact, quarantine won't stop it." She turned to her father. "We need to send medical teams to the affected colonies. I volunteer to lead the first mission." "Absolutely not," Emperor Valdris said firmly. "If this agent targets Cytherian biology, sending more of our people into those zones would be suicide." "But we can't just abandon them," Neela protested. "Those are our citizens. They need help." Ben had been thinking while the others argued. "What if the rescue teams weren't entirely Cytherian?" he suggested. Everyone looked at him with confusion. "Humans don't have telepathic abilities," Ben explained. "If this biological agent specifically targets those mental functions, it might not affect us at all. A mixed rescue team of humans and Cytherians could operate in the infected zone safely. The humans could handle the technology while the Cytherians provide medical expertise," Neela added, understanding immediately. "And if any of our people are affected by the agent, they could be treated before permanent damage occurs." Princess Kira was already running calculations on her tablet. "Theoretically possible. Human neural patterns are completely different from ours. An agent designed to disrupt Cytherian telepathy might ignore human brains entirely." "It's too dangerous," General Karos argued. "We don't know enough about this weapon to risk sending anyone into those zones." "We don't know enough because we're not investigating," Ben countered. "Every hour we wait, more people suffer. If humans can operate safely in the affected areas, we should find out immediately." Emperor Valdris considered the proposal carefully. "Even if humans are immune to the biological agent, they would still be in danger. We don't know who created this weapon, or whether they have conventional forces supporting the attack." "All the more reason to act quickly," Neela said. "If this is the opening move in a larger invasion, we need to understand what we're facing before they strike again." The debate continued for another hour, but eventually practical necessity won. 3 more star systems had gone silent during the meeting, and panic was beginning to spread throughout the Empire. Something had to be done. A joint human Cytherian rescue mission was authorized, with Neela leading the medical team and Ben commanding the human soldiers who would provide security and technical support. They would take a small, fast ship to the nearest affected system and attempt to make contact with the stranded colonists. As they prepared for departure, many nobles questioned the wisdom of sending the Empire's weakest princess on such a dangerous mission. But Emperor Valdris had seen something in his youngest daughter's analysis that impressed him. Her medical training and her ability to think outside traditional military patterns might be exactly what was needed. The rescue ship departed 6 hours later, carrying 20 human soldiers, 10 Cytherian medical specialists, and enough supplies to help several thousand colonists. Ben felt nervous as they approached the dead zone, but he also felt confident in Neela's abilities. The first sign that her theory was correct came when they entered the affected system's communication range. The Cytherian crew members immediately felt disoriented and confused, but the humans experienced no effects at all. "It's definitely targeting telepathic functions," Neela reported to the ship's captain. "Our people are losing their mental abilities gradually as we get closer to the colony world." By the time they reached the planet, the Cytherian crew members could barely operate basic equipment. But the humans were unaffected, and they took over all ship operations while the medical team prepared to help the colonists. What they found on the surface exceeded their worst expectations. Nearly 1 million Cytherians wandered the colony cities in a daze. unable to communicate with each other or operate any of their technology. Food distribution systems had failed, medical centers were closed, and transportation networks were completely shut down. "How long do we have to reverse this?" Ben asked as they surveyed the situation. "Unknown," Neela replied, studying readings from her medical scanner. "But prolonged loss of telepathic function could cause permanent brain damage in our people. We need to find the source of this agent and neutralize it quickly." The human soldiers spread out to secure the area while Neela's medical team began treating the most severely affected colonists. The work was slow and difficult because the patients couldn't communicate their symptoms clearly. After 12 hours of investigation, they discovered the source of the biological agent. Small, almost invisible devices scattered throughout the colony's air circulation systems. The devices released a constant stream of particles that interfered with Catherian neural functions. "Whoever did this has been planning for months," Ben observed as he examined one of the devices. "These things are incredibly sophisticated. They're specifically designed to target Catherian brain chemistry, while ignoring other species completely." "Can we destroy them?" Neela asked. "Yes, but there are thousands of them spread across multiple cities. It will take days to find and remove them all." That was when Neela's supposedly useless traits proved their true value. Her gray skin, which other Catherians found ugly, made her nearly invisible to the scanning systems built into the biological devices. Unlike her sisters, whose bright, energetic biosignatures were easily detected, Neela could move through the infected areas without triggering the device's defensive mechanisms. Her lack of telepathic abilities, always seen as a deficiency, meant she was completely immune to the neural disruption agent. She could work effectively in the most heavily contaminated areas where other Catherians would be helpless within minutes. Her small, plain wings, mocked by nobles for their lack of beauty, were actually more efficient for extended flight than the large, showy wings of her sisters. She could stay airborne for hours while searching for hidden devices in tall buildings and remote locations. Working with human technical specialists, Neela systematically located and destroyed the biological weapons throughout the colony. Her medical knowledge helped her understand how the devices worked, while her unique physical traits allowed her to reach them safely. Princess Neela has found and neutralized 70% of the devices, Ben reported to the rescue ship after 2 days of intense work. The colonists are beginning to recover their telepathic abilities, and normal operations are resuming. When news of their success reached the imperial capital, Emperor Valdris could hardly believe the reports. His least favored daughter had succeeded where his most accomplished generals had failed to even attempt a solution. More importantly, Neela's success provided a template for dealing with the crisis throughout the empire. Human Catherian teams were dispatched to all affected systems, using the techniques she had developed to locate and destroy the biological weapons. Within a week, all the dead zones were back online, and the Empire's communications network was fully restored. Investigation revealed that the attack had been launched by a species called the Vorthan, who had studied Catherian biology for decades while planning their invasion. The Vorthan had assumed that disabling Catherian telepathic abilities would leave the Empire helpless and ready for conquest. They had not anticipated that humans would be immune to their biological weapons, or that the defective Catherian princess would possess exactly the traits needed to defeat their plan. When Ben and Neela returned to the imperial capital, they found the palace in celebration. Emperor Valdris greeted them personally, his face showing pride and amazement. "My daughter," he said to Neela, "I owe you an apology. I have spent your entire life seeing only what you lacked, never recognizing what you possessed. Your supposed weaknesses have proven to be our empire's greatest strengths." The noble families who had once mocked Ben's choice now competed to offer him honors and rewards. Princess Zara publicly praised her sister's courage and intelligence. Princess Kira admitted that Neela's unconventional thinking had solved problems that pure logic could not address. But the greatest recognition came from an unexpected source. The human government on Earth, having learned of Ben's role in saving the Catherian Empire, offered him a promotion to Admiral and command of the Joint Human-Catherian Defense Force. "What do you think?" Ben asked Neela as they considered the offer. "Are you ready to be an admiral's wife?" Neela smiled, the same warm expression that had captured Ben's heart months earlier. "I think I'm ready for whatever comes next, as long as we face it together." The ceremony promoting Ben to admiral was held in the same great hall where he had first chosen Neela as his bride. This time, however, the crowd's reaction was very different. Instead of shock and confusion, there was respect and admiration for the couple who had saved an empire by seeing value where others saw only weakness. Emperor Valdris spoke to the assembled nobles with genuine pride in his voice. Today we celebrate not just military victory but wisdom. The human people have taught us to look beyond surface appearances and recognize true worth. Admiral Ben Walker saw qualities in my daughter that our own prejudices had blinded us to. He turned to address Ben and Neela directly. Your partnership represents the best of both our species, human insight combined with Catherian dedication, the ability to see potential where others see only limitations. As the ceremony concluded and the crowd dispersed, Ben reflected on how much had changed since that first day in the palace. He had chosen the least admired princess as his prize, but she had proven to be the most valuable treasure in the empire. The galaxy was a safer place because someone had been willing to look beyond appearances and recognize hidden worth. And that, Ben thought, was perhaps humanity's greatest gift to the universe. The wisdom to see value in the overlooked and strength in the underestimated. Neela squeezed his hand as they walked through the crystal corridors toward their new quarters. Thank you, she said quietly. For what? Ben asked. For seeing me when everyone else looked away, for choosing me when I had given up hope of ever being chosen, for believing in me when I didn't believe in myself. Ben smiled and squeezed her hand in return. Thank you for being worth choosing. Their footsteps echoed through the palace halls as they walked toward whatever new adventures awaited them. Behind them, the empire they had saved continued its ancient dance around three suns, secure in the knowledge that sometimes the most valuable treasures come in the most unexpected packages.